All right, y'all. Welcome to Green Book TV. Today we are interviewing Black podcasters of Tampa Bay. So, could you all please tell us your names, affiliations, and the names of your podcast?
Who's first?
I think I was just gonna follow the list.
Jay, look at the chat.
Where's the chat? Where's the chat?
Look at the chat, Jay. All right, Jamil.
I think it's supposed to be first. Okay.
All
right.
They had one job.
One job.
Okay. How you doing? I'm acting like it's my podcast. All right, how you doing? It's so good to be here. Hillary, thank you so much for having me. I'm Jamil Bell, Certified Life Coach and Wellness Coach, campaign manager for iFit and owner of Hive Over Matter, and of course, the American Griot. Super excited to be here, and thanks for having us.
Hi, I am Lauren Gay, and my podcast is Outdoorsy Diva, a travel and adventure podcast where I share about my adventures all around the world, as well as talk about outdoors, nature, and encouraging people to add more adventure to their lives.
I'm Keith Marcel. I'm the co-host with Jamil of the American Griot podcast. I'm also a creative director and have a freelance and consulting company where I help small businesses launch their new business. And I'm also the founding team member of PodPal, which is a software, a SaaS company. We're about to launch a podcast management platform. We'll allow podcasters to come on and manage their entire season or multiple seasons as an individual or agency. And we're in beta right now, so if you want to sign up and test the product out, it's podpal.com.
Sorry, I muted y'all. Jay, go ahead. L, I left your name out of all of that.
It's okay.
You're after Jay. Jay, go ahead.
Jay, you're muted.
Wait, there we go. What's up, everyone? I'm Jay Noetic. I am co-host of All Tea No Shade podcast. I am also a certified life coach. And I also have Noetic Sound, which is affordable podcasting. So if you're in the Tampa Bay area, please come through if you need some amazing sound for your podcast.
Hey everyone, I'm Elle Edwards, and I'm also co-host of All Tea No Shade. We are a social podcast. We kind of hit everything, politics, what's going on in pop culture. We're pretty much for the culture. And I'm not a life coach, I'm sorry. But I am a certified shade sitter, so I will sit under some shade.
All right, so one thing that I'm going to try out today, we'll see if it works, y'all. But we have a podcaster joining us virtually by me screen sharing, so we'll see what happens, all right? Let's see if this works. Am I sharing my screen right now?
I think so.
All right, is it my beautiful face? All right, and also with us is...
Yeah, so my name is Miko Seymour, and I am kind of all over the place here in the city of St. Petersburg. I am the CEO of the St. Petian magazine and also the CEO of St. Petian Collaborative and an equity director for the St. Petian Collaborative. I'm also the founder of Uncommon City, where we advocate for all things uncommon right here in an uncommon city here in St. Petersburg. I am a race equity listener here in the city. I am a public arts commissioner appointed by the mayor of St. Petersburg, and I am also a charter review commissioner for the city of St. Pete.
All right, so before we really get into it, could all of you please tell us about your podcast? So talk about format, topics, genre. So as people are listening, what might draw them to your podcast specifically? American Griot, y'all are up. Tell us about your podcast.
Go ahead, kick us off, Jamil.
Absolutely. So the American Griot is about releasing the burden of Black trauma and finding creative ways to heal and recharge. So Keith and I have experienced Black trauma, as all of us have in America, just everyday occurrences, right? So just came up with the concept and topic to tell the story, tell our story, to show up in our space authentically, and to create that safe space for all of us to really find the things we need.
Yeah, and the podcast is based off of the term griot, G-R-I-O-T, being a storyteller. It's a French word, West African background, just, that culture keeper within a community, within a tribe that pushes forward the story and songs and poems and stories, all that stuff of a culture, so that each generation has something to look back on. We're just kind of have a play on that with the American citizen version of that, being in the Black community and being of, deep culture and deep roots within our own families, just pushing those stories forward of ourselves and of others, of other griots out there.
Yeah, but it's about having fun doing it. So when it thinks about format, we really want to combine our song, our story, our roots, our local people in there to talk about everything that's important to you, to us. So it's really great. It's a great format in terms of just the flow of it, and topics we talk about are everything related to redefining trauma, because I think the word itself kind of comes off like, be like, that's deep. I'm not ready for that yet. And we're like, hey, listen, Black in America every day, you know what I'm saying? It's something that you got to go through. So I feel like, the directness of it is really just creating a safe space where it doesn't feel like, you're really kind of breaking open.
Yeah, with each episode, we try to take a little bit of historical context as it relates to our topic. Like we had an episode called Decolonize Your Diet, in which we had a kind of food expert to come on there, and we talked about the history of food and relationship with Black culture. Some of the stuff that's kind of been in our communities and in our diet that's kind of led to our sickness and health and decline in health over the years of our years. And then just kind of breaking down some of the stigmas that are associated with, healthy eating, and also some of the barriers too, like financial barriers and access and such. And then we have other episodes like this really fun one we did called Voting While Black, which was during the election time. We dug up all this research. Well, I say dug up like it's hidden, but we read and learned things about our own history that, just about the struggles that that our ancestors have taken to get to where we are today with voting rights on men and women's side. And just kind of, it put more energy into the voting aspect. So we touch on topics like that. We try to bring some historical context to things, and then also drive the conversation forward with those creative ways to recharge from what you just learned.
Absolutely. Definitely solution oriented and fun. We laugh a lot just because you have to. Humor is medicine. Black joy is resistance. So we definitely try to have fun, show up, but just, be honest about it. So definitely listen if you are tired of stuffing yourself into boxes that no longer fit. If you're ready to just show up without apology and feel good about it and know you have community. So.
All right. I love the history aspect of all of it too, because I'm a giant history nerd. All right, we're gonna hear from the Altitude Collective. I'm gonna share my screen again because I know how to internet. Look at me go. Oh my goodness, I didn't even panic at all that time. All right, here we go.
I am the host of the Altitude Collective podcast. It is my aim that with all of the things that are constantly going on, the chaos, the wonderful things, the hurtful things, that we move the conversation beyond kind of the tit for tat or the going back and forth. We actually elevate the conversation. We dig into the why, and we dig into the how and how people are kind of navigating a space or navigating a specific circumstance or topic, and then elevating that conversation towards kind of a solution-based conversation and really kind of pointing out what people are maybe already doing in a space, or just being able to talk through specific examples of how one can navigate a specific topic or situation. And so that's how I really got to the Altitude Collective. I generally, when in my kind of day-to-day living, I say this a lot, I live kind of in the clouds. In essence, I live kind of in the positive. There may be a lot of things that are going on that can kind of draw us down and make us sad and kind of diminish our hope. I try to live above that, because I feel if I can move myself, and it is hard, if I can move myself to kind of living above that or living in the clouds with a specific aim within the realm of hope, then I can put my mind to figuring out what solutions are there, or, who do I need to connect to in order to move towards solutions. Without doing that, without living in the clouds, or without elevating the conversation, I may be stuck in the weeds without ever moving to kind of solution-based principles. And that's what the Altitude Collective endeavors to do, is to showcase how we can do that via conversation.
All right. All tea, no shade. What about y'all? Tell us about your format, topic, genre.
I think we've lost Jay somehow. But like I said, we're pretty much for the culture where, blackness isn't one monolith. It's everyone's blackness is a little bit different, and we approach that. It's a honest conversation between Jay and I, and we always have people come on and guests come on. And so we're talking finances and student loan debts and how to figure that out, to what does Cardi B mean when she says, if it's up, then it's up and you stuck, right? So we're jumping back and forth. We're pretty much approaching anything that us, people our age bracket, are interested in, and we discuss it.
Yeah, we have a good time. Sorry, my phone froze up on me, so I went to my laptop. But we definitely probably are more entertainment based, where we have a good time. We do get a little heated every now and then, because we both are very opinionated, but we have a good time. I feel like it's more of our podcast is more of an old school radio feel, but we have different segments, and we talk about, like Elle said, gossip. We have a music segment. I love music. Our main topics are always typically Black culture related, but we have a bigger fan base than that, I guess. And so we try to stay very open-minded about the topics we discuss. But we're going on our 4th season now, and so we're very excited about it. So if you just love good entertainment and good and hope, and it's definitely R-rated sometimes.
We are here for shits and giggles, for sure.
Definitely check us out. We have a good time doing it.
Absolutely.
I think that's a perfect description.
Yeah.
All right. Last but definitely not least, Outdoorsy Diva.
Hi. So what I didn't say, I guess my bio, I really didn't say what I do, but it's all good. What's relevant is that Outdoorsy Diva really is a companion to my blog, which is outdoorsydiva.com, right? So the blog came first about 6 years ago, and then the podcast was birthed out of that. I never intended to be a podcast host because I actually hate my voice, but it was
so silky though. Sorry, go ahead.
It was kind of a burden placed on me, if you will. I did a radio interview for a friend as a favor that was syndicated on Spectrum Radio. It aired at like 6 a.m. or some crazy on a Sunday, right? I'm like, nobody's gonna hear this. And I shared, my story and my testimony basically about how nature saved my life, how nature is therapy for me, how discovering my love of nature and my connection to the outdoors was my connection to the divine, and it was healing for me. And someone listened to that, found a way to contact me and send me an email, right? There's no button when you're listening to radio in your car. And this person said, something told me to get up and turn my radio on this morning. I never listened to the radio like this. And I heard you and I heard your story, and I was done. I wanted to give up. I was going to kill myself today.
Mm.
And it was like, oh, okay, well, that's heavy. You like, that's it's great, but it's heavy. And right after that, somebody asked me, had you ever thought about starting a podcast? And it kept coming, and it's just one of those things, I couldn't run from it. And it was like, okay, well, if this is part of the vision, we're gonna roll with it. So the podcast has become the auditory extension, because some people are just not gonna read the wonderful, pieces that I write, as great as I think they are. Some people just don't, they're not readers. And it's different when I can tell you about an adventure. I can tell you about, my first time going to a new resort. I can tell you about a vacation that went horribly wrong. You can hear that. You can hear my humor. You can hear my honesty. Those are the kinds of things that I share. It's really like a behind the scenes of some of the adventures that I write about, but it's also become a vehicle to amplify other Black travelers and Black outdoorsy people, because like you said, we're not a monolith, like we're in this space. So being able to interview, really dope people like cowgirls of color who are badass Black women divas who ride freaking horses, like that's amazing. Being able to highlight people like Black Girls Trekking who lead Black women on hikes in the mountains in LA. Being able to highlight a young man, Fletcher, who is a quadriplegic, and he's been to like all these countries and lets his friends throw him in a cenote. Those kinds of stories are important, for us to hear and to see us doing dope things. So part of my advocacy work is about diversity and inclusion in the outdoor recreation space, in the travel space, and the podcast is a vehicle for that. So as a format, a lot of it is me, my monologue style, but I'm telling you a story and you're going to be entertained. You're going to laugh. Hillary knows, like, I don't have good sense. And honestly, on the podcast, I feel like I can let loose and say things I don't necessarily say in print. And that's just a matter of, dollars and sponsors and things like that. But then I have the interview style. They usually run anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. It just depends on what the topic is. I'm in my 4th season, and it has been amazing to watch it grow. It went from like, I don't feel like anybody's listening to me, and now it's like, oh, okay, all right, we can monetize. This is a thing. So like, if you like to be entertained, if you like adventure, if you like good storytelling, then it's for you. If you've got wanderlust, it's for you. If you're a person who loves traveling and we can't really get down like that, in the P word happening, it's for you. If you like being inspired and you just want to step out of your comfort zone, like that's for you. I'm an adventure coach, and I use that as a vehicle for people to design the life they really want to live. Because I just hate to see people look at me and think, oh, she's really living and I can never do that. Because you can, like, you absolutely can. So that's what Outdoorsy Diva podcast is all about.
So first of all, I love all these podcasts, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, but these are some of the ones that just bring me like regular joy. Because most of what I listen to is just stuff that's like super depressing. But these are ones that bring smiles to my face. So with that, we're going to get into the podcast specific questions. Oh, all right. I'm going to start with you, Alti No Shade. Listen. So like you were talking about earlier, you have the different segments. And the one episode that I want to ask you about was one where your main sip was about the unprotected Black woman.
Ooh, child.
I listened to that, my heart rate was spiking, okay? So I just want to know, it got a little heated. Emotions were high in studio. So what was it like? Just tell me about recording that. And
you want me to go first, or you want to go first?
Okay, sir.
Well, in that episode, I feel like, first of all, we always want to protect the Black woman, but I felt like Black men also don't get protected. Like, we get shitted on a lot. And so in that episode, I really stood pat defending Black men. But I don't feel like I ever said anything that was not defending Black women. Like, I love Black women. On our new episode comes out tomorrow, we talked about me and my dating experience with Black women. Like, that's my shit, you know? Can I curse? Sorry. I'm used to cursing on All Tea No Shade.
I think we've passed.
But so we got. I don't think it was really Elle and I that really got into the disagreement too much, because we had a featured guest on there, our friend Remy Mulatto from Mulatto Perspective, and I was just really defending Black men and wanted to put the world to know, say, look, we gotta love Black men too, and that was my perspective on it.
So for me, I wanted all the smoke with everyone, because I felt like, well, Jay's argument or his considerations were like, let's talk about Black men, you know, they're not protected too. I think that's the same thing as like a Black celebrity saying, I love Black women, and then somebody on white Twitter saying, oh, you love all women are beautiful, all women are amazing. Like, no, we are focused on Black women, so let's focus there. That's what the name of the podcast is about, the main sip is about. That's what the focus is on. Why is it that we can never just focus specifically on that? And then with regard to Remy, he didn't believe that Black women necessarily are not unprotected, and I need to let him know what was up.
Well, the main issue that happened was that got pretty heated was the whole Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez debate, and whether or not Tory Lanez was justified in his action, and that really kind of set things off. And in that part of it, I actually was on L's side, saying, like, you know, there's never a situation where pulling a gun out is okay, whether she was in the car or not. And at that time, so we just got a little, that kind of set everything else off. But I will say it was probably the most heated we've gotten on the podcast, but it's also the most listened to episode that we've ever had. And I think we have a big audience that are Black women. And so it was good to see that it was well listened to and well discussed. Like, at the end of the day, we got to respect with each other, but we're not always going to agree, you know?
And I think
I also liked too that you included like there was also all the discussion, which even right now is funny to watch the spiciness. But that you included some like real life data around the stuff that people, so I could see how when people are listening to your discussion that they're like, yo, like sharing that episode, like, y'all have to listen to this. Sorry, Elle, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No worries. Yeah, I was going to say, to that fact, we kind of treated debate style. So we kind of know what our main sip's going to be, and we all kind of come prepared, ready for the smoke if the smoke will pop off, you know? But I think that these are the conversations that we need to have. These are the conversations that need to be had in our Black communities. You know, it's not something that we should shy away from. This is some of the conversations we need to discuss, and we're not going to always agree, but maybe we can find even ground, you know?
And then before I move on to the next podcast, is there a particular main sip that has been your favorite one beyond the Black woman?
Man, it's been so many. Like, we're over 100 episodes now, so it's hard to really think about how far we've come and think about our favorite one.
That was just like a humble brag. Did you all catch that?
You know, it's a humble brag.
100 episodes. So
I will. This is going to probably sound cliche, but I really did enjoy our very first episode. Now, going back to it now and listening, I hate listening to it because the quality was so bad, right? Ooh. Because we were just all starting off brand new, doing something we've never done before, with one microphone and 3 co-hosts talking in one microphone, and but it was so fun, and it really gave me an avenue to talk and to express myself, which I'm a writer, but I don't always talk about my concerns and my thoughts. So it's part of my most favorite episode because we got us started for me personally, but I don't tell anyone go back and listen to it now because we've come so far. But it's pretty sad.
Ghetto, honey, the ghetto. But I think one of my favorites has to be toxic relationships, because we've all been there. We've all experienced them. We've all been dumb and been not the right person, been the one kind of doing the dirt. And so I think it was one of those conversations where we all can relate at some level, in some degree, in even some small form fashion.
For sure. My first podcast episode, my co-host and I were sitting in our own closets over Zoom.
Gots to love it. You got to just start. Like, that's what we tell people all the time who ask about podcasts. Is like, you don't need the $300 mic in the beginning. Just start.
And where do you record now, Hillary?
I recorded Noetic Sounds. And I'm about to upload them to this apparently Black-owned. So, Keith, I'm coming to you all next for the question, but I use Anchor, and it sounds like what you're talking about is like Anchor, where you just upload it and it puts it to the places. It's
Anchor without the recording part. So this is more about the podcast management side, like project management. So it's the process of moving and organizing your podcast. So, podcasters in general are in like 7 to 8 different places per podcast they're running, between the apps that they're in, the Google Drive, Dropbox, your Calendly, whatever you're doing. So PodPal centralizes a lot of that effort, brings in some services, centralizes that, and also shows you the progress of your episode and like more of a checklist situation, so that you can say, okay, what's my next step for this particular podcast? And you run through each episode that way. Okay. Kind of takes a lot of the guesswork out. And then even as, veterans like yourselves, into your 4th season, you just want to scale and you don't want to be focused on some of these little smaller tasks. So that's kind of where PodPal fits in. Oh. Podcaster's best friend. A pal for pods. All right, American Griot, your episode on the 5 R's really spoke to me, especially on the need to reprogram. My life is hectic regularly. Can you tell us what it was like creating that episode, and how has starting the 5 R's shifted your life? And I guess just tell the folks, what are the 5 R's quickly too? Because we want them to listen to it too, right?
Absolutely. So I love that you love that one, because I love that one too. That one is a compilation of life. That's a compilation of reading our own stories and just like looking at it and paying attention, like we're the characters, and like, oh my God, that happened. That's a theme. If I could remember that would be really good, So it kind of comes out of a place like that. Because once we learn something, it doesn't mean we just have it mastered forever. Like, we have to keep remembering it. We have to keep reminding ourselves. We have to, every choice is a vote for who we want to be, right? So we got to keep making the little choices every day. So for the 5 R's, it's really quickly, and then I'll kick it over to Keith just to say, what it was like for you, because for me, it was necessary, especially during the time that we did it, coming out of COVID, finding your voice. I think Jay said something powerful when he said, I'm a writer, but I don't always express, and to be really proud, you know what I mean, when we can express. So for this was like coming out of that and finding that voice again and sharing what we gathered, like what the journey was, for us. So Keith, you want to share the 5 R's really quick and kind of break that down?
Yeah, sure. So the 5 R's are the first one being ready. Be ready to see the truth. Second is reframe. So you want to reframe the way that you harness emotion. The third R is reflect. So getting 100% real with honest self-reflection. Step 4 is remove. So remove the things and thoughts that no longer serve you.
That part.
And the 5th R is reprogram your mind. So it's a step situation. So building up to that reprogramming, but you need these steps beforehand to kind of get all the tools you need in order to be successful in that reprogramming and really see things differently and see yourself differently.
Yeah. So it's kind of like people, we like to focus on the action, especially other people's action, because that's usually what get our attention. You know what I mean? It's actions and results. We want to jump there right away, but missing a lot of the thoughts. Brother earlier was mentioned about elevating, you know, and really using that higher mind and choosing our thoughts wisely and programming ourselves so we serve ourselves and not someone as, you know, something else, right? That no longer serves us. So it's really kind of like framing that, knowing what we're thinking, knowing how that feeds our feelings, because everything we do is because of how we feel. It's either because we don't feel like it or it will make us feel better. We feel, you know, we feel motivated to show up. So it's really kind of helping to break down those things that are in between that are often missed so that we can really manifest the change we want to see.
Yeah, and we're often getting stuck, you know, in our own individual ways. I could speak from my story, just with the different things that I'm in on a constant basis. I had that step 3 reflection, like real heavy with myself, to be like, okay, well, you know, is it this that you're busy, or are you finding ways to be busy all the time? Are you addicted to this, or do you like, you know, being distracted? Why is it that you have such a struggle with time and not having enough of it for yourself and the people around you? And I really had to do that reflection as well. And I went to a really great workshop with Jamil, actually, she was putting on. It was for a small group of women. I brought my daughters there and stuff, and we talked at the end, and we kind of decided, you know, the following year we're going into was going to be all about focus. And I think that was like 2019 going into 2020, or 2018 going into 2019. It was something that felt far away, but at that time, you know, I just reflected recently when we were putting this episode together, like, man, I thought that year was going to be all about focus and really shedding some weight off of my life. And here we are, like a year and a half later, I'm still feeling this way. So that's how the 5R really helped me get unstuck, was to really have that honest self-reflection and then remove those things and thoughts that were no longer serving me, including clients. The hard part, that's money. You know, that's money that allows me to go do things with my kids, or, you know, enjoy myself, or buy something new. So I had to, like, is that what's worth it? Is it this time I can read at night with my kids, or is it this next client I got to get? So that's just kind of been my journey, how the 5R and that whole development of that podcast episode caused some immense reflection, and then leading up to it as we built the 5R method. And we're packaging that up right now in a book that we're going to be able to deliver and share that gift as well in a more expounded sense with our listeners and fans of the podcast and of this methodology as well.
Absolutely. Season 3 is coming in April.
I will be ordering that book.
We got one sale. Oh.
All right. Whoa, let's go. I got you. Just name on it and a sign. What? My love letter to you, because I love you.
All right. Thank you. So, Lauren, I am an outdoor adventurer, and I couldn't pick anything to talk about, though with your latest episode.
Go ahead.
She interviewed the Super Bowl streaker. But anyway, I'm going to let you tell us what was your favorite adventure to write about, which was your favorite episode to do and why? So I would prefer an adventure that you did, but you can also talk about an interview if you would.
This is a terrible question. Like, you know, I've done literally thousands of adventures.
I couldn't pick one, so I'm just gonna put it on you. Sorry.
All right. I have one, but you can't just tell people I talked to the Super Bowl streaker. They're gonna be like, "What the heck does that have to do with adventure and travel?"
Actually, I'll tell you all what it has to do with. I'm gonna answer for him. He actually is an adventurer. Like, he is a nature traveler, loves traveling. So he makes sense for the show because of his lifestyle beyond this decision to get onto the field. But I thought it was a good episode.
If running across the field in a pink thong is not adventurous, I don't know what is. But yeah, so favorite adventure. I had time to prep for this question, and it is a hard one, man. But I'm gonna stick with my first choice. It's episode 19, where I walk y'all through when I went solo camping in Yellowstone by myself as a Black woman. I had all these ambitions of staying in a tent and all this stuff. I had the IG post in my mind of what this is going to look like, because getting to Yellowstone was like huge bucket list for me, just because it's beautiful and I've always wanted to go. And basically, I had to, I was brutally honest. I was terrified of grizzly bears. I've never been in grizzly country. I live in Tampa and I'm originally from Texas. Neither of those places have grizzlies. And it freaked me out to the point where I couldn't sleep. I had seen videos of bears opening your door at night. So I car camped instead. I had a campsite, but I slept in my car. I had to pee in my car because I wasn't getting out in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, even though it was like 20 feet away. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. Thank God for the large McDonald's iced tea cup. Okay. So that episode is my favorite just because I was able to really narrate it, and everybody is like, girl, I was on the edge of my seat, like pins and needles. It was like a true crime story, except nobody died, but I came very close. There was a very close encounter with, I thought it was a wolf. It turns out it was a coyote. I was setting up to film. So I'm also a photographer. That's my stuff behind me. There was a harvest moon. So the harvest moon was going to rise over the mountains in Yellowstone. This is like epic stuff, right? So I'm setting up. It's getting dark. I got my tripod, my setup. I'm good. And then I saw something like run behind me in my peripheral across the street. And I was like, what was that? And I didn't see anything. And then I saw like ears and fur, and then slowly like this creature is coming into vision, right? And he's like, I transported into the truck. And so like I tell this story about how I literally thought I was gonna die, okay? Yellowstone is not the zoo. It is, you are the guest. This is their home. So that episode is just funny as hell because I'm keeping it very real with you, but I'm also telling you like how freaking beautiful that place is. I don't think I've ever described a place as vibrant and just as well as I did, because that land is like really alive. So I think that's why I picked that one, just because I really took you on a journey and painted this picture for you in your head. And then I also made you laugh like a lot. Like don't drink anything. Don't have a full bladder when you listen to that. Because it's wild. So that one is probably one of my favorite. And I just want us, like as people, to see more of the country we live in. Like I love international travel, but we do live in a beautiful country. You know, don't make the theft not worth it. I mean, seriously, like indigenous people and the land and all the things that truly belong to them. You know, I think as Black people, it also belongs to us. Like, I'm just being honest.
Somebody
I really, that took me down. That one right there took me down.
So, like,
don't make it worse.
It is part of the states union, and we need to see it. We need to appreciate it. We cannot let we shouldn't just let the colonizers just have it to enjoy. Like, I'm serious. Like we should, and we should feel ownership and pride in it and see the beauty in this country. And that way we're more involved from a conservation effort, from an environmentalist effort, because when you see something like that, then you care about it. So that's really like full circle, you know, what I mean by that. You know, it's like, we stole it. Now let's do some good with it. So not we as in the country. We didn't have anything to do with that. Right. But
we know who you mean. We know who you mean.
But that one, that episode 19 of me solo camping in Yellowstone is the favorite for that reason. It's near and dear to my heart. Is that satisfactory, Hillary?
Yes, and I appreciate how it came full circle with conservation, because I wasn't sure where that Yeah, no, that sound. I need to go back and listen to that one. That sounds really cool.
I'm listening to that tonight.
I know. All right, and then the last question I have, I'm gonna share my screen and play. If you all could stop your video just in case my bandwidth does what it likes to do from time to time, that should help it play smoothly. Let me make sure I'm sharing my sound. All right, I'm gonna press play. And we are gonna listen to the altitude. I don't know why I keep saying altitude weird. The Altitude Collective. So my questions for you, firstly, I want to know more about how you got the idea for the episode called The Black People Speak. And then when can we look, or what can we look forward to when your episodes come back?
Sure. Yeah. And I really appreciate this question. Season 2 started out, well, first I should say that the Altitude Collective podcast operates in kind of a seasonal episodic format. So we endeavor to do about 12 to 13 episodes. We found in season 1 that we may have gone beyond that. And in season 2, we did a little less than that. So season 2 really kind of launched right before the pandemic. And so I had a lot of things planned. You know, we pushed out episodes around the news media by interviewing a local news anchor here in Tampa Bay. And we had several things lined up, including episodes around what does it look like to be a father in this kind of day and age. And we didn't release those because we moved into a pandemic. There was also an episode with one of the city council members here in St. Petersburg and how she viewed the city and what challenges we were facing as a city prior to the pandemic. All of those episodes got shelved because the world changed at a drop of a hat, unfortunately. And so what ended up happening was we wanted to pivot the Altitude Collective to meet the need, if you will, of the day. And so, we had an episode where we brought in 3 kind of content experts around how should someone be navigating the pandemic as it was at that time. And we did. In that conversation, we had, or in that episode, we had a conversation around mental health. How do you stay kind of mentally fit during a time of unknown? We also talked to, in that very same episode, a resident doctor at Johns Hopkins All Children's Hospital, where we really talked about the science of COVID-19 as it was at that time and what we knew and what was still left out there for us to research. And so we were really trying to endeavor of making sure that as we were putting out episodes, they wouldn't be kind of, or they wouldn't be ignored. I think that was our big fear, is that the world was kind of in chaos and, we would be putting out something that people would think, oh, I don't need to listen to that right now because so much of my attention is on the pandemic. So as we journeyed throughout 2020, as we started to move into kind of May, June, and July, it really, we really got to a place where the country was starting to navigate conversations around police brutality and around racial injustices. And for so many of the Altitude Collective podcast listeners, we knew that these conversations would be some of the first conversations they may be having in a very real, substantial way. And what I was finding after the murder of Ahmaud Arbery was that the general public was starting to have conversations from a place of white centeredness, and the voices of people of color were not being elevated. they were, especially in kind of a social media world, they were still being kind of snuffed. And I think if people would remember who are listening to this interview right now, there was that kind of Blackout Tuesday, I think it was, where the goal was to elevate Black voices, but it was commandeered by this kind of performative action on social media, that if you were to post the Black box, then, you know, you've done your work. And I really felt like we can't begin to endeavor to do the work or to engage in a conversation without hearing from Black people. What were your initial thoughts and feelings after seeing these murders happen? And in many ways, in the Black community, it wasn't so much a shock that these things were happening, but we were seeing, because of the advent of the iPhone and cameras and people being able to, you know, hit record, you know, immediately, all of this was being kind of pushed in our face. And so there was an opportunity here, I believe, where we could really hear the raw, unfiltered, unedited emotions of Black people as they were processing kind of the murders that had happened. And what we found with the episode, The Black People Speak, is that there were commonalities, there were similarities, and when you listen to the episodes, there were kind of nuanced differences in how people were processing their pain. A lot of pauses, a lot of anger, heightened emotions, and a lot of kind of steady narratives that had already been processed. And I couldn't find areas or platforms that were doing that in a very real way. As a listener in St. Petersburg, where I get to listen to stories, so many of the stories that I get to listen to throughout my day-to-day move me to action. And I felt the Altitude Collective could serve in that way of platforming these raw emotions, these raw unedited emotions from people of color, and also in the same way for the audience to hear what Black people were dealing with and processing, and then hoping that that would move people to action beyond putting a Black box out on social media, right? Like to really humanize what was going on beyond the media, beyond what commentators maybe are telling us how we should be thinking and feeling, maybe majority culture telling us how we should be navigating and whether or not we should even say anything. We really wanted to platform what are the raw emotions, the raw processing of Black people during this moment, in hopes that we can move a generation, we can move people, especially people in majority culture, to say, this moves beyond politics. This is a human issue, and how can we address that? That was what we endeavored to do. And so in terms of, I hope that makes sense, in terms of as far as the new season of the Altitude Collective, which will launch, you're hearing it here first, folks, which will launch this summer, our goal, our whole entire world has changed, right? And so the Altitude Collective, we're still all about elevating the conversations. And so I believe we're going to have a season that is specifically geared towards racial reconciliation, race equity, and what does that mean in all of the places and spaces that we show up. In both season 1 and season 2, we began with conversations about or having courageous conversations around ethnicity, around race. We're going to continue that in season 3, but it will be the running theme throughout this new season that launches this summer.
All right. So with that, my last question to all of you wonderful, beautiful chocolate podcasters is, where can we find your social media? So what are those handles? What platforms are those? And then how do we listen? So, Lauren, tell us about your podcast.
You can find me on the interwebs at Outdoorsy Diva everywhere, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and same for the podcast is Outdoorsy Diva. It's on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon. Name a podcast aggregator. It is there for you to subscribe and listen. So looking forward to you joining me on some of these adventures.
All tea, no shade. What about y'all?
You can find us on Instagram at All Tea No Shade Podcast, all one word. And we also have a Facebook page called All Tea No Shade. And we have a Facebook group called All Tea No Shade Podcast and Friends. So add, share, like, join, all that good stuff.
And of course, we're worldwide, you know, Spotify, Tidal. Maybe not Tidal. We're working on Tidal, but we're everywhere.
Pretty much all major streaming
platforms, yeah.
All right. American Griot.
Hey. So you can find us, The American Griot. That's a Griot, French term, African word. You can find us at The American Griot at Instagram and also theamericangriot.com.
All right. And I will let Miko tell us where we can find him.
The Altitude Collective exists on all platforms that you get your podcasts. You can go specifically to thealtitudecollective.com, which is our website. It houses all of our podcasts. In fact, in season 3, we are also continuing with our snippets, which are kind of the little meaty chunks from conversations that you can grab and reshare on your social media platforms. And speaking of social media, you can find the Altitude Collective podcast on Instagram at the Altitude Co. The Altitude Collective Instagram page really coincides with our seasonal offering. So you'll see that start to ramp up as the season begins later this summer. And then you can also find us on Twitter at the Altitude Co.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much again for spending this hour with me. I really appreciate you all.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Hillary.
Thanks so much. Love you, Hillary. I appreciate what you're doing.
If anybody wants to podcast co-host, let us know. I'd love to do it.
Please, yeah.
I'd love to collaborate with all of you guys. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
thank you, Hillary, and thank you all of you.
That would make my heart so happy.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I had to ever smile the whole time. Couldn't hear nothing. I'm just miming out here. Yes. No, you all are fantastic. You're inspiring. I love to see it. I love to see it.
Absolutely love this.